Okay, I'm going to go ahead. I have 6:30, so we're going to go ahead and we might have some more friends join us as we go along here, and that's going to be fine. So I want to welcome you to this virtual program. My name is Angie Mack, and I am in the Reader Engagement Department at Mid-Continent Public Library on our programming team. I have my colleague, Angie Straffman. You get two Angies for the price of one tonight. So Angie's here to tell us all about upcoming books that are buzzworthy that you may want to add to your to be read list. So before I turn it over to Angie, I am going to give you a couple quick housekeeping reminders. I want to remind you to go ahead and keep yourselves muted as we go throughout the program. We'll have time for questions and you can chat with Angie if you want to as we finish our program tonight. We'll let you know if we need you to unmute, but until then, go ahead and keep yourself muted so we can all enjoy the program. Also, I want to invite you to put your questions in the chat box. We'll answer them either as we go along if we have a minute or at the end of the program, so we don't keep everyone. We want to be mindful of our time, so we have a lot of books to talk about. So anyway, if you have questions, be sure and put them in the chat box. Also, I'm going to put a link to our program survey. We always would love to have your feedback about our virtual programs. So I'm going to put a link to that survey in the chat box tonight. I'll also include it in my follow-up email tomorrow or as soon as the YouTube video link is ready. So finally, I'm going to talk about a couple of upcoming virtual programs that you might want to add to your calendar. See what's out there. Some of these are holiday and some are not. So our first one is not a holiday, but a classic film, making of a classic, The Wizard of Oz. So in this program, you'll discover the groundbreaking mix of imagination, innovation, and perseverance that brought the Land of Oz to life in 1939. Our friend, film historian Dr. Annette Bohanec is going to join us on December 2nd at 6:30 p.m. Central Time through Zoom. And we'll explore why this film continues to enchant audiences more than 80 years after it came to this big screen. So it will discuss the production and the legacy of this classic film. So put that on your calendars, December 2nd at 6:30. Also coming up, we have Mary Berry Celebration, cooking with berries throughout the holiday season. This program is on Zoom on December the 8th, also at 6:30. We're going to invite you to come and celebrate all things bright and merry as we explore all that berries have to offer. Plus pick up a few tips for relaxed and enjoyable entertainment along the way. We'll explore the most flavorful ways to incorporate fresh, frozen, freeze-dried, and dried berries, plus berry jams and condiments throughout your holiday menu and everyday dishes. So this is December 8th, 6:30 on Zoom. Also, another film, a classic film, America's favorite holiday movie, A Look Inside It's a Wonderful Life. Voted the most inspirational movie ever made by the American Film Institute. Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life has been a beloved Christmas classic for generations. Our friend Brian Rose is going to examine the challenges of making the movie. It's surprisingly dark portrait of a small town life and how it became the ultimate portrayal of holiday goodwill and cheer. December 16th at 6:30 p.m. And our final program reminder, it's going to be for the Holidays Unwrapped on December 18th at 6:30 p.m. on Zoom. We're going to explore fascinating histories surrounding the four major holidays in December. The winter solstice, Hanukkah, Christmas, and Kwanzaa with our friend Dr. William Thayer-Felder. He'll look at how millions of people celebrate these holidays around the world each year. So if you want to learn a little more about a holiday you might not know too much about, join us on the 18th. All right, with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to let Angie take over from here. Angie, good evening.
Hello, thank you, Angie. As Angie said, I am also in our reader engagement department. I'm a reader engagement and librarian. I do this program virtually quarterly. And I am so happy to see some familiar faces come back again, as well as some new faces join us today. If you haven't been to this program before, I tried to spotlight some of those books that might not already be on your radar. So beyond the big names and the bestsellers, some new things that you might want to add to your reading list from a variety of genres and subjects. Just a quick note for today's program, especially, almost all of these books have been published. However, the biggest library vendor, not just for Mid-Continent, but for libraries in general, recently went out of business, which does mean that we have experienced some delays. So if you're not seeing that book available yet, it should be very soon. We are working very hard to get them in your hands. But in many cases, the ebook or e-audiobook versions might be available. And as Angie said, anytime you might have a question, feel free to put that in the chat. I will try to monitor that as well and answer them as they come up or at the end of the program. But I have a lot of books I'd like to share with you today, so let's go ahead and get started. So up first, we have The Wilderness by Angela Flournoy. The Wilderness follows the ebbs and flows of female friendship over the course of 2 decades. This novel alternates points of view between 4 different women, Nakia, Desiree, Monique, and January, at various periods of their lives. Often when each character is a bit unmoored, whether they're contemplating or undergoing transitions in their family situation or in their careers or in their relationships. Thus, they're kind of out in the wilderness in various ways, thus the title. Mostly, though, it highlights the found family of friendship, particularly among Black women, and the various combinations of the 4 get closer, they draw apart, they withhold or reveal parts of themselves, and support each other over the course of their friendship. It also tackles a lot of societal changes and issues, especially as we get closer to the end and the resolution of this novel. If you enjoy the novels of Britt Bennett or Lisa Coe or Last Summer on State Street by Toya Wolf, you might like this one. Angela Flournoy's previous novel, The Turner House, was an acclaimed novel about family, and this one does the same for friendship. Up next, we have The Good Liar by Denise Mina. Claudia Atkins O'Sheill is a forensic scientist specializing in blood splatter analysis. She is part of a high-profile case, and her evidence convicts a son accused of murdering his father and his father's fiance. However, Claudia suspects that the crime might be connected to her own husband's death and 2 other murders. Her analysis, however, was incorrect. And she realizes this and has to decide in a career-defining moment what she's going to do with that information. She's about to give a speech at a gala in front of all of the rich and powerful and connected people of London, and she faces a very difficult choice. Should she admit her mistake and possibly destroy her career and upend her family's security? Or should she come clean, expose the truth and her role in it? And oh yeah, the actual murderer is in the audience for her speech. Alistair Burke says, filled with intelligence, intensity, and empathy, The Good Liar is a taut, propulsive mystery about family, truth, and morality. In addition to thriller fans, book groups might want to pick this one up because of all of the ethical and moral dilemmas that the characters face. Next, we have a memoir, Destroy This House by Amanda Yulee. Destroy This House is a reflective and bittersweet memoir of the author's childhood growing up with a dysfunctional family. Her father was an inventor and a schemer who was always out to make his next buck, and their housing and lifestyles waxed and waned alongside his successes and failures. And no matter where they lived, her mother's hoarding added to the family's dysfunctions. As an adult, Yulee looks back on her childhood with dark humor and a recognition of how her upbringing was different than most. Author Sarah Val says, "What do you get when parents' pursuit of happiness collides with a child's need of stability? Astounding anecdotes, expired canned goods, and hard-won insights on loyalty and love." If you like The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls or Educated by Tara Westover, this is a memoir in a similar vein of unusual childhoods and overcoming them. Next, we have something a little bit lighter. We have A Legionnaire's Guide to Love and Peace by Emily Skrutsky. Kat and Emery are soldiers and friends preparing for a battle that neither one of them expect to survive. So anticipating it's their last night, might as well, right? So they give in to their attraction and have a one-night stand. Only the next day in battle, they end up victorious and very much alive, thanks to the appearance of a mysterious prince who leads them in their defeat of the Demon King. So now Kat and Emery must decide what to do now that the war is over, and they must deal with their possible feelings for each other. But also they must figure out what their life, identities, and future are going to look like now that the big battle has ended. If you like Freya Marsky's fantasy, this is an author you might like to try. Next up, we have People Like Us by Jason Mott. You might recognize Jason Mott's name because he won the big one, as he calls it, or the National Book Award for his previous novel, Hell of a Book. And this one is very much in that same vein. In People Like Us, we follow two Black authors in alternating chapters. Suit is in Minnesota, preparing to deliver a speech at a college that has just experienced a tragic shooting. He's also still reeling from grief over the loss of his daughter. His unnamed counterpart in the opposite chapters has also just won the big one, or the National Book Award, and is on a tour throughout Europe, supporting his novel. An eccentric French billionaire is financing his tour, but also offers to keep him in luxury in France as long as he promises to never return to America. While he's contemplating that offer, he spends most of the time with the billionaire's burly chauffeur and his translator, who bears a striking resemblance to Kid from the author's previous Hell of a Book. If this sounds confusing, it is not always clear what is real and what is not. Are these authors two separate people, or are they the same person? Are they both stand-ins for the author himself? It's also very, very funny. One recurring element has the author being mistaken for Ta-Nehisi Coates or Colson Whitehead and signing people's books anyway. But it's also at times very sad and poignant and moving, and always imaginative as it explores themes relating to violence, grief, and the juxtaposition of Black experience in and outside of the United States. If you are fans of Percival Everett, Paul Beatty, or yes, Colson Whitehead, you might like to read this one. Next up, we have Fiend by Alma Katsu. Grady Hendricks says, if you like Succession, but think it would have been a lot more fun with an 1,000-year-old demon, then Alma Katsu's Fiend has got you covered. What book isn't improved by the appearance of a 1,000-year-old demon? This one, Alma Katsu usually writes historical horror, but in Fiend, she turns her focus to a contemporary setting. The Berisha family rules over an import-export empire, and their rivals always have misfortunes at very convenient times, allowing the Berishas to accumulate more wealth, market share, and power. But is this a blessing or something more sinister or even supernatural at work? Fiend is told from the perspective of each of the three Berisha children in both past and present storylines. Darden is the reluctant heir who his father sets to take over the business. Maris is the middle child who desperately wants what Darden has been promised. And youngest Nora just wants to use the family's power and wealth for good this time. It all makes for a gothic thriller horror story. Succession meets the fall of the House of Usher and will leave you wondering, what is scarier, ancient evil or modern day greed and power? Next up, we have a book that I'm in the middle of right now. It's The Feather Detective by Chris Sweeney. Who knew that a feather could reveal so much? The Feather Detective chronicles the fascinating life of Roxy Laybourne, an avian taxidermist at the Smithsonian Institution, whose expertise in feather identification helped pioneer the field of forensic ornithology. Because of her expertise, Laybourne was sought out by the Federal Aviation Administration to investigate crashes related to bird strikes and how to prevent them. The FBI and other crime organizations relied on her expertise to prosecute crimes. So a victim that's smothered by a feather pillow, or the victim of a hate crime who's tarred and feathered. Roxy's ability to identify feathers helped convict people accused of both of those crimes. Roxy also shared her knowledge with following generations, serving as a mentor to many others, particularly women. Alongside Roxy's story, we also get insight into the history and workings of the Smithsonian Institution. We get inside several criminal cases and the aviation industry. But most of all, we also get the story of a fascinating and a flawed woman working in a field dominated by men and serving as an authority at a time when female expertise was often sidelined and dismissed. Next up, we have a fictional story of another fascinating woman from history, Sonora by Jenny L. Walsh. This is a historical fiction novel. If you've seen the 1993 Disney movie, Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken, you may know the backbone of Sonora Webster's story, though the movie took some liberties with Sonora's life. Walsh's historical novel aims for a more accurate picture of this adventurous and courageous woman. In the midst of the Great Depression, Sonora's mother sees an ad from Dr. Carver looking for a diver and answers on behalf of her daughter. Dr. Carver's Carnival Act features a rider mounting a running horse and both horse and rider diving from a 40-foot platform to a wading pool below. That sounds incredibly scary to me. But Sonora agrees to train with Dr. Carver's son, Al, and takes to this unusual profession, but she takes just a little bit longer to warm up to Al. This inspiring story takes you into the world of traveling carnivals and showcases the spirit and resilience of its heroine, who continues her career even after a tragic accident. This is for fans of the movie Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken, Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead, or Manhattan Beach by Jennifer Egan. Next up, we have Best Offer Wins by Marissa Cashino. This is a debut novel from a woman who chronicled the real estate industry as a journalist for many years. And so she has particular insight and authority for this humorous novel. What would you do to secure your dream house? When Margot, the main character in Best Offer Wins, finds her dream house a month before it goes on the market, she's confronted with this dilemma. What will she do to get it? And it turns out Margot will do a lot to land the perfect real estate. And not all of it may be ethical or even legal, and definitely not rational. This is a darkly funny novel, and it features a relatable premise if you have ever ventured into the housing market recently. It also features an increasingly desperate and unhinged character, a very darkly humorous tone, and a very twisty plot with some tension and twists abounding. Library Journal says, this is a sharp, emotionally charged take on the real estate rat race, blending millennial anxieties with biting humor, hilariously chaotic and surprisingly resonant. And early reviews are saying this has a very shocking and fun ending. Next, what's tougher than the real estate market? How about the homeowners association that comes with that perfect house? And that's what we get in Murder Two Doors Down by Chuck Storia. In this cozy mystery, Brad is an insurance fraud investigator and member of his HOA board. When one of the HOA's most difficult and vocal complainers is found murdered, Brad becomes the chief suspect. Will his insurance investigator skills translate to a murder investigation and clear his name? He might need to enlist the skills of an attorney and a savvy investigator to help him stay in his house and out of jail. Author Joanna Wallace says, Storia masterfully turns neighborhood politics into high-stakes hilarity, proving that beneath the veneer of perfect lawns lies a fertile ground for murder. Written with wit, warmth, and just the right amount of menace, I loved it. If you like that only murders in the building vibe of like murders taking place among your neighbors, you might also want to give this one a try. Next up, we have I, Medusa by Ayanna Gray. Ayanna Gray tells the story of the infamous mythological Medusa through a feminist and Afrocentric lens. In I, Medusa, Meddy grows up on a secluded island with her two sisters and longs for more. And she gets it, but kind of at a cost. When she captures the attention of Athena, she becomes an acolyte priestess in training, and her sheltered upbringing does not prepare her for the reception she receives from the other acolytes, or for the attention she receives from Poseidon. When Athena is angered, she transforms Meddy and her sisters into gorgons and their locks into snakes. This retelling of Medusa's story turns the monster story into a moving coming-of-age one and a story of sisterhood, grief, anger, and revenge. Samantha Shannon says, deeply relevant to both the ancient and the modern worlds, I, Medusa packs a punch as hard as stone, yet still leaves room for the fragile joys of the mortal condition. This one is for fans of Jennifer Saint, Madeline Miller, or Vaishnavi Patel. Next up, we have All That We See or Seem by Ken Liu. Ken Liu is the author of the epic fantasy series The Dandelion Dynasty, which gets a lot of comparisons to Game of Thrones. He's also an award-winning translator of Cixin Liu's The Three-Body Problem, among other books. Now he turns to a near-future thriller that will appeal to readers of Blake Crouch or William Gibson's Pattern Recognition. In this near-future thriller, Julia is a hacker who's retreated from her past notoriety to a life of anonymity. She isolates herself from the world and trusts no one or the technology that is around her. So she develops all sorts of ways to kind of disguise her presence online and offline. She's approached by Piers, whose wife Ellie has gone missing, because he hopes that Julia's skills will help track Ellie down. Again, in this new future world, Ellie has an unusual profession. She is an Onerifox, who is kind of a performer who leads these collective dreaming performances. So she shows up in these concert venues and uses an AI to help kind of everyone experience the same dream all at once. And she's very popular and good at her job. As Piers and Julia dig deeper into Ellie's disappearance, they begin to wonder if a former client might be behind Ellie's disappearance. We also get the perspectives of the villains who are also tracking down Piers and Julia. This novel is set in a near future where AI saturates every aspect of modern life. Julia is able to exploit all the traces of data that others leave behind while using very creative technologies that she's developed to hide her own activity. Ellie's profession also explores the intersection of art and AI, as Ellie relies on AI for her performances and leaves behind an AI egolid, which is basically an extension of Ellie in her creative work that allows Julia to help track her down. This novel takes a very surprising turn, kind of about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way to the end, that requires some self-examination for Julia and really sets up where the rest of the series might go. Next up, we have a romance, Give Me a Reason by J.C. Lee. And this one is particularly for fans of Jane Austen's Persuasion because it is a retelling of that story. When Anne moves to Korea to become a K-drama actress in order to support her family, she leaves broken-hearted Frederick behind. He wanted to follow her to Korea, but Anne breaks up with him because she doesn't believe he would be happy there. Now, years later, Anne is returning back to LA to be a part of her cousin's wedding party and finds that Frederick is also there. Their feelings are still there, but miscommunication and pride still stand in the way. Again, if this sounds a lot like Jane Austen's Persuasion, you would be right. This one, just like Persuasion, is a second chance romance. It also has an epistolary element. Letters are a big part of the plot of both Persuasion and this novel, and is a way that you get especially Frederick's feelings about this situation. So if you like slow burn and second chance romances, Korean pop culture, or Jane Austen influences, this is one you want to try. So this is perfect for people who liked the original or any of the recent adaptations like Sonali Dev's Recipe for Persuasion or Isabel Jalaluddin's Much Ado About Nada. And again, if you like Jane Austen, this is the 250th year of her birthday, so you might be seeing lots of Austen adaptations in the works, both in books and in movies. In this anthology, 9 contemporary romance authors choose one of Austen's characters. But instead of Lizzie Bennet or Eleanor Dashwood, this anthology focuses on the Austen characters that are not quite as beloved. So we get Mary and Lydia taking center stage over their more charming elder sisters. Caroline Bingley gets to be more than a snobby side character in a story in this volume. And Miss Bates gets to narrate her own story. The authors of this anthology include Sarah MacLean, Eleanor Lippman, Eloisa James, Nikki Payne, Adriana Trigiani, and more. I really love a great anthology as it can be a place to discover new authors. And this one comes with some familiar characters you might enjoy reading about as well. Next up, we have The Merge by Grace Walker. This one is a debut novel that is very thought-provoking. It's set in a near future where the society is contending with overpopulation and comes up with an unusual solution to tackle that. A new technology has been developed that combines two consciousness into one body. Amelia and her mother, Lori, sign up for this experimental procedure, in part due to Lori's Alzheimer's diagnosis. So they're hoping that by completing the surgery, they'll be able to keep Lori's memories intact and their relationship strong. While preparing for the procedure and the recovery, they also interact with 4 other pairs of mergers. And each one of them has some kind of illness or medical condition that inspires them to undertake this technology. So will Lori and Amelia come out of this on the other side with a stronger relationship and Lori's memories intact? Or will they regret their choice? This is a dystopian novel, so I'm betting you can probably guess the answer. This one is for fans of These Memories Do Not Belong to Us by Yiming Ma, which is one of my favorite books of the year, or Immaculate Conception by Ling Wing Wang, or the TV show Black Mirror. Next up, we have Female Fantasy by Iman Hariri Kia. Junie loves romance, especially her favorite romantasy series and its merman love interest, Reiki. And no human can possibly compare or live up to Reiki's charms, especially none in her small town. When she discovers that Reiki, the fictional character, is actually based on a real-life person, Junie sets out on a road trip to track him down in her brother's borrowed car. Unfortunately, that car comes with a condition. Her brother will only let her borrow it if she lets his friend Nico hitch a ride with her to New York City. Nico just happens to be her childhood crush and the source of her first heartbreak. Will this road trip lead to romance? And if so, will it be with her fictional fantasy or with the very flawed former flame who happens to be sitting in the passenger seat? We also get interspersed elements of Junie's Iranian culture, as well as chapters of the romantasy series that Junie is obsessed with, which is delightfully named A Tale of Saltwater and Secrets. So you can see just why the merman Reiki has a hold on her heart. And you get 2 romances for the price of 1. Romance writer Lila Sage says, as a lifelong romance reader, this is the type of book I'm looking for. A book that makes me feel seen, adored, and brave enough to hope for something bigger. Absolutely stellar. Next, we have The Tragedy of True Crime by John J. Lennon. And the author asks, why are we obsessed with true crime? Is it the glimpses into our darker selves that true crime reveals? Is it the salacious details we're hungry for? And why are we drawn to these tragic stories as entertainment? John J. Lennon's The Tragedy of True Crime is an attempt to show that the real stories behind the headlines can be much more complicated. Lennon himself is a convicted murderer who is still behind bars and writes this nonfiction account from behind bars. He attended a writing workshop in prison, which jump-started his own journalism career, and he's written for publications like The Atlantic and the New York Review of Books. This is his first book, and it intertwines his own story with that of three other convicted and incarcerated murderers. So he tells his own story of murder, as well as the story of Milton, who killed two priests in a botched robbery, Shane, who murdered his former lover in a crime of passion, and Rob, who is the infamous preppy killer. Lennon shares each man's stories both before their crime and their life in prison afterwards, while threading through the story of his reckoning with his own crime. Through these stories, he gives readers a glimpse of life behind bars, exploring violence, sexuality, and mental health among the incarcerated, and themes like absolution and the flawed nature of the judicial and carceral systems. Next up, we have The Fourth Daughter by Lynn Lau Butler. Liv is a Taiwanese American chef who has isolated herself after a tragic incident happens at her restaurant. Her beloved grandmother needs her help tracking down the daughter that was stolen from her, a daughter that Liv did not previously know about, until her grandmother glimpses a woman who she thought might be her daughter in the streets of Taiwan and enlists Liv's help. This one is told in two different parallel narratives. So we get the story of Liv and Amma's search, but we also get the circumstances that led to the daughter's disappearance in the past. And both stories bring up aspects of Taiwanese culture and history, especially around food, as Liv is a chef and food is what really initially bonded the two together. Patty Callahan Henry says, Butler has woven a stunning tale of love, loss, and the unbreakable ties of family. The Fourth Daughter is a novel that doesn't flinch from the complexities of truth or the pain of what has been lost, but it also celebrates the resilience of love and the hope that binds generations together. So if you like the novels of J. Ryan Stradhole, who really connects generations with food, or The Phoenix Pencil Company, which is another book that explores Asian history, you might like this one. Next, we have another nonfiction book. It is The Quiet Year, an investigation of missing sound by Raymond Antrobus. Raymond Antrobus grew up in London. He is the child of an English mother and a Jamaican father. He is also an acclaimed poet with 4 published collections of poetry. He was diagnosed as deaf at age 6, and he has kind of an unusual relationship in that he's able to hear only very limited frequencies and pitches, so he's not completely silent. The world around him isn't completely silent, but enough to cause lots of hiccups with communication and experiencing the world around him. In this moving memoir, he describes his life straddling the world of the hearing and the deaf and both sides of his racial identity. Andrew Leland, the author of The Country of the Blind, says, this expansive memoir chronicles Antrobus's vexed journey across and between the multitudes he contains, the fraught but ultimately joyful experience of living between hearing and deafness. And Andrew Leland is the author of the memoir, The Country of the Blind, which explores his own kind of straddling between the world of the blind and the sighted, and is another great nonfiction book. Another one of my favorite nonfiction authors, Clint Smith, who's a poet and the author of How the Word is Passed, says, it beautifully complicates and expands our understanding of what deafness is. The Quiet Year has given me new ways to think about the vibration of sound, the movement of language, and the complicated contours of shame. It is a book that changed how I will move through the world. So that's pretty high praise from an author who is himself very highly praised. Articulate by Rachel Kolb is another memoir that just very recently came out about the deaf experience. And True Biz was a very popular fiction novel that dealt with deafness recently as well. And so if you liked either of those books, this is another one to try. Next, we have something lighter and shorter. It is a novella. So if you are someone who's trying to reach your reading goals for the end of the year, Novellas can be a great way to do that. This one is set in the near future world. California fought a war with the US and is still dealing with the aftermath. And robots have been granted limited civil rights, which comes with a backlash. So, a group of sentient robots wake up in an abandoned restaurant in San Francisco and decide they're going to use the space to open up a noodle shop. This one has a cozy, uh, hopeful, found family aspect. So, if you like books like Legends and Lattes or Becky Chambers' Monk and Robot series, this is a really good comparison. But it also still raises some of those big questions of science fiction, including questions about autonomy, about civil rights, and recovery from trauma. All right. I am someone who not only judges a book by a cover, but also by its title. So when I saw the title of this book, I was immediately intrigued. It is Colin Gets Promoted and Dooms the World by Mark Waddell. So Colin works as a low-level employee for Dark Enterprises, and he thinks he might be let go soon, which at this company means something much more permanent than being fired. It means being killed. So a shady figure asks for a favor and offers Colin something in return, and so he thinks that what's going to save his job and his life and possibly put him in a much better situation, he asks for a promotion. But this promotion comes with more than a new title or a bigger paycheck. It might just have unleashed an apocalypse. Kirkus says the humor throughout this novel is delightfully witty in a way that fans of dry satire will greatly enjoy. It's filled with top-notch world building, entertaining antagonists, and tongue-in-cheek charm. This novel is not to be missed for fans of urban fantasy that gently toes the horror line. A charming corporate horror novel with a whole lot of heart. If you enjoyed Sign Here, which is a recent book with a similar kind of premise, Hinch by Natalie Zena Walshatz, or Assistant to the Villain, these are all books about workplaces I certainly would like to avoid. You might like this one as well. All right. Next we Had a Hunch by Tom Ryan. If you were someone who was a fan of Nancy Brown or Nancy Drew or Encyclopedia Brown or the Boxcar Children or any of those childhood detectives, this is a book that imagines what happens if there were two sets of teen detectives in the same town who had kind of a rivalry with each other. So they both lived in this small town, two twin sisters and kind of a tech whiz other kid. And they both were solving different memories in their small town until there was a tragedy. They end up catching a killer called the janitor, but not before the twins' father was killed. So now it's decades later. Both of these detectives have moved on, but there are new killers in town. Are they copycats or is the real killer at large? So the janitor calls them back, the serial killer calls them back to give them information, and the two must band together alongside a new teen detective who is using TikTok and his influencer status to help solve the crime. So if you're fans of like Scooby-Doo, Nancy Drew, Veronica Mars, this one has that same kind of fun vibe to it as well. All right, and then I have a couple of books that should be paired together. The first is a nonfiction book, Crisscross, The Making of Hitchcock's Dazzling Subversive Masterpiece, Strangers on a Train. So this is kind of an oral history story of the making of one of Hitchcock's classic films. And you should pair that alongside Birds, Strangers, and Psychos, which is an anthology of stories by a lot of today's most acclaimed crime writers who are writing stories in a Hitchcockian vein. And so some of those writers include writers like Lee Child, Joe Lansdale, Sophie Hannah, S.A. Cosby, Peter Swanson, Denise Mina. So again, it's a great way to get a taste of a lot of different crime writers, as well as kind of getting a deeper deeper insight into Hitchcock's influence on the world of crime stories. And then finally, this is a forthcoming book that's coming out at the end of the year, but I'm in the middle of reading it right now and can't wait to get back to it when this program is over. It is An Arcane Inheritance by Camilla Cole. Ellery Morgan is a 21-year-old freshman at fictional Warren University. In this kind of fantasy setting, Warren is the last college to join the Ivy League. She's given a prestigious college to go to Warren University, which finally allows her to pursue the college degree she and her family sacrificed for but couldn't afford until the scholarship allows her to. She's struggling to find her foothold among her wealthy classmates while also experiencing some really strange anomalies and this eerie sense of deja vu that she's experienced a lot of these settings and people previously. Her academic rival, Hudson Graves, becomes an unlikely ally as she tries to figure out the root of these memories and paranormal occurrences. They find a secret history of Warren's connection to the occult, a series of student deaths, and hints of a secret society where the power and privilege comes from and at whose expense. This is a book where the kind of mystery unfolds very slowly, as well as the enemies to lovers romantic subplot. But once it kicks into gear, you really can't turn the pages fast enough. It's impossible to put down, and I was very sorry when I had to do that before going to work this morning. This one is for fans of Babel by R.F. Kuang, Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wang, or Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. And so those are all the titles that I have to share with you today, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I would really love to hear about what some of your favorite books of the year are. And so Angie is going to be putting a link in the survey or in the chat, as well as in the follow-up email. MCPL is getting ready to release our annual best books of 2025, starting on December 1st. And this year, we would like to include your choices as well. So if you want to submit your favorite adult fiction, adult nonfiction, and kids books, you're welcome to do so in that survey. Or you are also welcome to unmute yourself or put in the chat, and I would love to hear them here too, as well as any of your questions about any of the books I talked about tonight. Or are you like me, someone who's had a okay reading year, but is still waiting for that perfect best book to pop up in the last couple of months? And if so, is there anything you're excited about reading? Okay, Tell Me What You Did by Carter Wilson. That one has been on my holds list, but I haven't quite pulled the trigger, so I'm excited to try that one. And The Other Side of Now, the audiobook. Wild Dark Shore. I haven't read that one, but I really liked Migration by that author, Charlotte McConaughey. So I'm hoping to get to that one in 2026. Everything is Tuberculosis. Yet another one that I'm hoping will make the list. And spoiler alert, MCPL staff really love that book too. So you might see that coming up in our best books coverage. Oh, have you already read Heather or The Feather Detective, Horace? Or Irma, or who might be there with you? You have? Okay. I was initially intrigued by that one because I really liked The Feather Thief. And so I feel like, which is another nonfiction book about someone who steals feathers from the British Museum of Natural History. And so I thought those two would make an interesting juxtaposition. All right. So we have some love for Colleen Hoover. I feel like a bad librarian. I have not read any Colleen Hoover, so I might have to make reminders of him, my first one. And I also really love Usman Jalaluddin's books. In addition to her romances, I am also in the middle of Detective Auntie, which is her first mystery book. So if you're not familiar with that author, she writes books, first romance, and then now she has started a new mystery series set in the Muslim community of Toronto. So it's kind of a unique setting, but very fun characters. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions or comments, I'll turn it back over to Angie. But again, we'd love to hear what your favorite books are in this survey and look forward to look to their website on December 1st, and you will start to see some of MCPL staff's favorite books of the year.
I can't believe that 2025 is coming to an end.
I know, I know.
It went by way too fast. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. This program is being recorded, so as soon as the recording is ready, I will send the follow-up email with a link so you can watch it again. If you didn't take, if you have incomplete notes or weren't able to, want to watch it again, you can do that. So thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you join us next quarter for more Buzzworthy books. Take care. Have a good night.
Oh, and yeah, and there was a book list that I think Angie will also
Oh,
share if you didn't
I
catch a
didn't, did
title.
I? Yes, I'll send it in the email. Forgive me. I'll send it in the email.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Good night.
Good night.